And welcome into On the Preds with me, your host, Alex Darty of A to Z Sports, and Sean Smith of On the Forecheck. How's it going, Sean?
Oh, it's going pretty good, Alex. How about yourself?
Oh, it's been great. We've had some awesome weather in Nashville, if you haven't been paying attention. 7 inches of snow, some tornadoes, and also now some flooding. So, that's fun.
Hey, what else are you going to get when you talk about Tennessee weather, right?
I think the only thing next is some really intense heat. I think maybe next week it'll be like 100 degrees.
I hope so.
Yeah,
we get weird Tennessee weather bingo. Then I don't know what the prize is, but it's got to be awesome.
Gosh, it's been really weird. But anyways, this is the show where we recap the Preds. We don't recap the weather. We don't talk about weather here. We talk about the Preds. And if you can't tell from our screen, which if you're watching on YouTube, which you should be, you can see that the Predators are in first place, and that is something you cannot ignore. The Nashville Predators are in first place, holding it down in the Central Division. Every time they go out with first place on the line, they hold on to it. So it's been a really interesting week. They've won 4 straight. They now have 23 wins in the NHL. And we're going to recap the games from this past week, and we're going to talk about some big picture things, some really interesting things that have been going on with this team. And but let's go ahead and get it started. You ready to do that?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's talk about Vegas, because if you remember, do you remember last week we said that basically we would expect this team to win 2 out of the 3?
Yeah, we were looking for 4 points as a metric of success.
Yeah, only 4 points out of 6, and that was just because the Predators had been maybe riding a little bit of a high streak, and maybe one of these teams would find a way to bring them back down to size. That did not happen, because the Predators, taking on the Pacific Division leading Vegas Golden Knights last Tuesday, and honestly, this may have been the most physical game that the Preds had played to that point. There were 89 hits in this game, which is crazy. The Preds had 55 of them. Yeah. Phillip Forsberg gets the scoring started, taking a Mikhail Granlund pass, ripping a wrist shot by Logan Thompson. That makes it 1-0. I think this is Logan Thompson's second only start ever. Jakub Trenin gets another tip goal, very similar to one that we talked about last week. Something really good to see that Jakub Trenin is still tipping those pucks in. That makes it 2-0. That was also Philip Meyer's first point. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was really excited about it.
Pretty exciting. Then after another heavy-hitting second period, Phillip Forsberg has probably the leading candidate for goal of the year, at least for Nashville. And I want to show this because, I think Victor Arvidsson has had the goal of the year the last couple of years. He's had some pretty awesome goals. Phillip Forsberg usually saves this kind of thing for the playoffs. But check this out. This was really awesome. Phillip Forsberg, potential goal of the year candidate against Vegas. This made it 3-0, I think.
Yeah.
Around him, but it starts with a block shot. Strandro trying to take the right angle, and Forsberg, a little flip play, just pushes it ahead, uses his sprint. There's the play, kind of almost a little flip pass to himself, and then to the backhand as he beats Logan Thompson for his second of the game. That's just inside.
That's incredible. Turning Alex Pietrangelo, who's a pretty good defenseman, inside out like that, just being so physical on the puck, the little tip pass to himself in midair, and then deking the goalie. Now, you can say it's Logan Thompson, whatever. That kind of move would have worked on probably most goalies. It was perfect. I think that was that's probably the leading candidate for goal of the year. I can't think of any others. Can you?
I want to make sure. I mean, Alex, this is a family show, and if we're going to show stuff like that, we probably need to give a warning to parents, because we saw a man murdered, and then we saw pure filth. And I don't know if this is going to get us blocked or taken down, but man, we got to start warning people about this.
We'll put an NSFW tag on it.
I don't. As far as another goal for goal of the year, definitely. Can't think of another one on this team, but maybe there's something else out there that I'm forgetting. But that's just pure, absolute filth, and I love it.
Yeah,
love it.
So that made it. I think that made it 3-0, and then Vegas kind of really put on the tested Nashville towards the end. I mean, really gave Nashville some panicky moments. Made it 3-2, but the Predators would win 3-2. So. And that gave Nashville first place in the division on the road in Vegas. Not an easy place to play. Then let's go ahead and just jump to Los Angeles, because I think that it wasn't a back-to-back, but the way the games were played, they were so similar in terms of their physical nature. They felt like this back-to-back, a gauntlet here, Vegas to Los Angeles. So the Preds entered the hallowed halls of Crypto.com Arena. Crypto.com Arena. I know, Shaun, I miss the old days when arenas had real names like the Snickers Peanut Butter Dome.
Yeah. I have fond memories of the Snickers Peanut Butter Dome, mainly because I enjoy Snickers peanut butter and domes.
What about the Progresso Reduced Sodium Creamy Tomato Soup Arena? You like that one?
The less sodium, the better, I guess, as long as you're not sacrificing taste.
And then there's old Crest White Strips Park. I loved watching a ball game at CWSP. I've got a whole list of these, by the way. We'll come back to that at some point.
Okay.
But basically during the third period of the Arizona game, up until things got crazy, I was just coming up with these names because I was having fun with it. But anyway, Phillip Forsberg, just like in Vegas, scores again for the Preds. This time it was on the power play, putting the Preds up 1-0. I might have that goal to show. I can't remember if I put it on there or not. I'll check that in a second. But then Matt Duchene breaks through for the Preds on the second goal, also on the power play, 2-0 after 1. Matt Luff scored on a really nice play by Michael McCarron. He got the pass, got the shot off, he got stopped, but then he got the rebound. 3-0 Preds again for the second straight game. And then Dustin Brown, Martin Ferk got the Kings back in the game, but Juuse Saros was really the key to this win, and we're going to talk a lot about him right down there. We're going to talk a lot about him tonight. Season high 46 saves for Juuse. Preds win at 4-2. Los Angeles, not an easy win anymore. That's a tough team. Don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but they're still a tough team. So, So there you go. Two wins right off the bat on this road trip, and then I think you're going to talk about Arizona next. But what do you think about these first 2 wins?
I really enjoyed the style of play I saw, and I'm not here to say like I just want swinging and brawling the whole time, but realistically, when you get a guarantee made at the beginning of the season that they're not going to be an easy team to play against, you want to see that play out. You don't want to see it play out only against certain teams. You want to see it play out against teams that are also big and physical as well. And really, it's kind of nice to see the Predators getting the advantage on that for once. Especially against a team like Vegas. It was really nice to see like that discrepancy, that disparity in the number of hits, and just the fact that there are a lot of guys on the Preds that can get under the other team's skin. And really, when you carry that kind of momentum over into the LA game, really happy to see that it was just continuing and not a one-game thing. Again, you're on the West Coast, you got jet lag, you're up past your bedtime playing hockey. I mean, I assume they're up past their bedtime. I don't really know what time they go to bed, but I also know they're professionals and they're trained for this. But it's not a one and done situation where we're going to go out and give 110% against this team, and then you go up against the team 2 nights later, and then it's just what happened? What's going on? Yeah. So I'm happy to see that physical side really kind of coming in. And doing what it's supposed to do. If it's not winning you games, you just look like a bunch of jerks and a bunch of bullies. So it's nice to see that you're actually getting those wins on top of playing that physical game. And I really think that means you're starting to see this whole game plan come together for John Hynes. So I'm really happy about all of that. And I also want to point out too, really happy to see Matt Luff get his first Preds goal against his former team. I don't think, and look, we're not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here at least and say that, clearly Matt Luff is top line talent and he should be playing on the first line every night. But the reality is, when you're in the league and you've been in the league for a while and you get cut by a team, how many opportunities do you really get to go and score a goal against them? I mean, to me, that's just poetic justice. So,
I think the Matt Luff thing, Michael McCarron stepping in and playing well, has a lot to do with what kind of environment John Hynes has created. There's a lot of buy-in right now. I mean, guys are really buying into their role, into their position. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I think it really goes back to the identity that when they found the Sissons, Janot, Yakov Trenin with Matthew Olivier thrown in there for some spice, when they found that connection last year, that was the start of this team finding its identity, I think. And I think that cannot be understated. I mean, like that group continues to be exciting to watch, productive on the ice, physical, imposing, intimidating to the other team. I mean, they just have not had that kind of a line, at least consistently, in years. I mean, it's been a long time. So, and I think the Matt Luff thing, he's not really like those guys, but I think he probably sees guys like that, someone like Tanner Janot, undrafted guy stepping in and being a huge contributor and being like, I can come in here and do the same thing. So Matt Luff, really good to see score against his old team. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say too, you take someone like that and you do, I don't want to say you have guys that are inspiring other guys, but I think the big thing we saw last season was you saw an influx of youth coming up from Milwaukee. And I want to say that the work ethic they brought with them and the fact that they are continually trying to improve opened up a lot of guys on the regular NHL roster's eyes to say, well, hey, if these guys can do it, I can do it too. And I think you had guys finding new ways to contribute all over. And so, sure, you take a guy like Matt Luff who's come from another team and he sees like, hey, these guys are making an impact. I think they're all challenging each other to continue stepping up their game. And I think that's, again, combine that with the big next man up mentality. And I think you've got a recipe for a lot of wins.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and jump to Arizona because you're going to talk about that one. And that was also an eventful game.
It was, and it's probably a longer recap than it needs to be. But I mean, Alex, if you like arena names, the Preds had the opportunity to play in the legendary Gila River Arena.
Gila River?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. That's everybody knows. Everyone loves.
But you know what? It's no. Hang on. It's no grapenuts.com field. Grapenuts.com field. So many classic games at that one. All right,
so many. You think about all the legendary things that have happened in the, would you say, the hallowed halls of the grapenuts.com field. Oh, man. Wow. Oh, gosh. Well, anyway, the lights look dim on the broadcast, which made me recall the whole Coyotes are behind on their Bills fiasco earlier in the season.
I'm sorry. I promise I won't keep interrupting, but they've always been dim.
It seemed like they got brighter as the night went on. I don't know. But it for whatever reason, I think the levels on the broad, it just looked dark, but I don't think it was the arena. It was just, it was a good opportunity to make a joke about that whole situation from earlier. But, the thing is, Arizona made it clear early on that even though they only have 7 wins on the season, that they're not going to be a pushover. In fact, push was a pretty good word to describe the night because the teams pretty much leaned on each other until they would fight all night long. The Preds ended the first up 3-0 on the strength of Matthias Ekholm with a bull and a China shop goal, a Yakov Trenin laser, and a backdoor beauty from Tanner Janot on a pass from Matt Duchene. And, there was a lot of fighting over the course of the evening and a ton of minor penalties as well. Preds didn't look great in the second, but Saros had them covered. And, of course, Arizona made a little noise in the third on the strength of a Keller goal. But the big story was probably the Coyotes' second goal, which was played with a high stick. The linesman called it as played with a high stick, but the goal was ultimately not reviewed, allowed to stand. And John Hynes was not allowed to challenge, which he is absolutely allowed to do. The two benches jawed at each other during this whole stoppage until they eventually threw Tanner Janot and someone from the Coyotes, I stopped paying attention, out of the game, I guess to prevent further violence. I don't know. The refs didn't really seem like they were doing too great of a job. I don't mind saying it. And then the refs tried to restart the game, but Hines and company were waiting for a review from Toronto, or at least a chance to challenge, and didn't send anybody out to take the face off. So then they called the bench minor for delay of game, which put the Preds on the penalty kill. Delay a game, bench minor. I mean, for your coach, that's not what you want because he's waiting for justice for that high stick. But it never. At the end of the day, the Preds ended up winning 4-2. Hines never got the explanation he wanted, and even talked about it in the post game. So a good way to finish the road trip with a perfect score of 3-0, but definitely an interesting third period.
So that whole sequence with Lawson Krause and with the whole sequence with Lawson Krause and I think also what's his name, Antoine Roussel. Liam O'Brien is the guy you're thinking of. Liam O'Brien was kicked out. He's a journeyman. He's a nobody, really. I mean, I'm not shy to say that the guy's played like a few games here and there, but he's not like anything. He's not even a prospect or anything. He's just a guy. Anyways, my point is Liam O'Brien is the guy that was jawing with. So what happened was, I'm not really exactly sure what happened with Lawson Krause and Jeannot, but at one point before a face-off, there was a lot of jawing between the two. There must have been some other event that happened earlier in the game, like a hit or late something, I don't know. But there was also some talk after the goal. So when Lawson Krause scored that goal, he like talked to the Preds bench on the way back. I think he said some stuff, and then they just lit him up. If you see that, if you go to my Twitter, I've got a whole video on it of the full from the Arizona broadcast. Now, I don't know if the Preds broadcast had anything extra, but they had just a pretty good long minute of just F-bombs back and forth. And it was mostly Ryan Johansson and Tanner Jeannot just laying into Lawson Krause. And it's pretty entertaining.
It was entertaining. And I'll tell you, it is on your Twitter. And I was watching it. My son was very curious to see what was going on. And he said, what are they saying? I'm like, a lot of stuff that you don't need to hear. And he was like, yeah, but what is it? I'm like, they're just having a conversation about how good someone is at playing hockey. And it's not very positive. And he's like,
I think ultimately the discussion was that they were saying Lawson Krause was an effing fourth liner. And he was saying that he's not. And he was disagreeing with that take. And there may have been some talk about like their respective place in the division. I couldn't really tell.
Gotcha.
But Ryan Johansson, just when he gets going with another person, it is must-see TV. There's some images of Ryan Johansson making faces at this guy that is just hilarious.
He's very funny when he gets going.
Go check it out. It's pretty good stuff. I would play the video, but honestly, it is like there's just nothing but F-bombs. And when we put this on YouTube, we have to say if there's like cursing in it or not. And so I would rather say that there's not. So
it's a family show.
Yeah, exactly. Twitter's the Wild West. You can do whatever you want on Twitter. So go check it out there. Yeah. All right. So yes, 3-0 on the road trip, and then they come back home. We'll talk about next week coming up. But I just wanted to say that the physical nature of this Preds team is just, and this goes back with what I was saying about Tanner Jeannot and that Yakov Trenin line. It is so much different than what it used to be, than just a couple years ago. They just do not back down. And I think that video of them yelling at Lawson Krause is one element of it. It's like there's an intimidation factor, but it is just from the opening puck drop of the Vegas game, there was intense hits. I mean, we're talking huge hits. It was the kind of game that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 2019 Preds, immediately would have been dominated and probably scored on a couple times and then just kind of had to chase the game the rest of the way.
Yeah.
They matched it, and not just matched it, but what's the word? Went over it.
Hand signals. There you go.
They were better than Vegas. I mean, in terms of the physical game, like throughout the whole game. That the 2019, 2020, you can maybe say the 2018 team, although that team did win a President's Trophy, so it's not like really they were pretty good. But they just were not tough. They could not hold on to the puck. They didn't win puck battles. They were not strong on the boards. They and that does not bode well for a team if you can't do those things. This team is different. This team does not back down, and it's not just that they've gotten some new guys in there that can do that. Guys like Borowiecki, guys like Tanner Jeannot, Yakov Trenin's that way. I think Nick Cousins is that way. But guys that have been on the team from those other teams, Mattias Ekholm, Ryan Johansson, Phillip Forsberg, are all doing that as well. Like they're stepping up that physical side of their game, especially Ryan Johansson. I mean, you see him every single night. He is a physical dude. along the boards, in the center of the ice, everywhere. So I think the physical nature of this team is just it's incredible to watch, and it is such a stark difference from 2 years ago.
You know, a lot of the guys you mentioned, you know, there's not a lot of players, I think, in the league that are going to back down realistically when called on. But I think out of the guys you mentioned, you know, I think I asked Forsberg a question last year when they were becoming a little bit more physical of a team, if he enjoyed leaning into that kind of heel category a little bit more, if he enjoyed that physical aspect of the game, and he just smiled and was like, yeah. You know, so I think you kind of have some of the guys that are holdovers from that previous roster that that style, although they have, like Forsberg, a lot of skill. You know, I think there's also this element of I can be a heel too, and I can enjoy it. I mean, I like when I see a guy get punched in the face and then laugh and smile at the guy who did it.
Yeah,
there's something in that really, you know, you think, oh, I punch a guy in the face, I win, but then the guy laughs at me, and then you realize you've lost that battle. And I think that does something mentally to the other team, or to the guys on the other team when that happens, because they realize, like, I punched this guy in the face and he's laughing at me. What can I do? So you're always kind of playing down a little bit. And Johansson, first off, you mentioned it, he's hilarious, but, you know, it's the really funny people who are also with really good cutting senses of humor, can get into you really quickly with the things they say. So it's a role really kind of perfect for him. And I love to see it.
You know, Ryan Johansson reminds me of a lot of guys that I remember from high school, college, even middle school, who were just kind of clowns, but they were also like athletic and like kind of intimidating. And so, like, you kind of learned all, like, early on, you wanted them on your side, you know? Like, I was not an athletic dude. I'm not a particularly physically imposing person, like, not at all, actually. And so, like, when I played hockey, I just got thrown around the ice. I just wasn't very good. But a guy like Ryan Johansson, it's not just about his, you know, physical size. It's about his attitude, right? He has that attitude. And the other thing is, I think that what you have now with this team is you've got a reputation with other teams. We'll talk about this when I play the John Hynes clip later about other teams preparing for the Preds. But this team has a reputation, and specifically players have a reputation. There is no more ignoring guys like Tanner Jeannot, Yakov Trenin on the ice. When 84 and 13 come on the ice, the other team has to match it. They can't just say, well, we'll throw our third line out there. They have to consider throwing their first line out there, because they've got to have good skill to match that pair. And I'm only using that pair because it's, you know, Colton Sissons obviously is a big important part of that, but those two are the ones that are creating so much havoc. But they have to consider whether to throw their top line out there and their top pair defensemen, because those guys are able to score a lot of really impressive goals and also beat the hell out of you. And so, and then because they're doing that, you know, the top lines, guys like Forsberg, Granlund, Johansson, Tolvanen, all those guys are able to get a little bit easier competition, because when they go out, the second or third line are coming out. So you've seen a lot of that. You've seen a lot of mismatches for the Predators because of those guys stepping up so much.
100%. And I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head so much talking about the duo of Jeannot and Trenin, because, and I look back on the game against the Coyotes, and I think about, you know, we have to face the reality that Yakov Trenin got in a fight and he didn't win. But, you know, the reality is I'm okay with him not winning that fight. I'm going to tell you why. First off, winning a fight doesn't really get you anywhere.
I don't remember. What fight was this? When was this?
Toward the end of the game, I don't remember, but Trenin started, you know, having a pushing and shoving contest with somebody on the Coyotes, and then another
Andrew Ladd. Okay, yeah, got it.
And then I think Ladd came over and immediately just jumped him. But the reality of that whole situation is that if that's any other player, you know, who's not known for doing what Trenin can do physically, I don't think anybody comes over and takes care of that fight. I don't think they have. I think they just let them push and shove it out. But because you see, oh crap, that's Yakov Trenin over there, I got to protect my guy. Well, now you're losing one of your players for 5 minutes as well. as opposed to what it might just have been a 2-minute roughing or something like that on Trenton. So, you're having to commit resources to, defending a player in that situation. And so, I mean, Trenton's a big, strong guy. He's going to handily win a lot of his fights. But if you lose one, but at the same time, the other team loses a player for 5 minutes, and they're playing down as well. And so you end up, taking a situation, I think, that would have probably not really escalated. And then it escalating, and that just proves that is someone that they're paying attention to. That's someone they're worried about. That's someone they're going to make sure that they're either going to try to get off the ice, and you're committing a lot of resources to guys like Trenton and Jeannot when they're out there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. They all seem to play together. That image of, I just have it in my mind, that image of Johansson and Jeannot and Borowiecki somewhat just screaming at Lawson Krause. And Jeannot seems so perfectly in that role. He fits that role. And he's all, you could make the argument he's kind of stepping into a leadership role. It's not exactly the leadership role you want, where it's just all you do is yell at the team. But it's of note, I think. I mean, the guy has come so far so quickly. Like, all of a sudden, he's like one of the most important players on the team. And the guy was just, I mean, no one even knew this guy. Maybe even a year. I mean, it was about this time last year we started noticing him. Yeah. He was on the team, I think, but no, he wasn't really making that noise yet. So, anyways, that's been really great to see.
I think, and I could be wrong here, and if I am, I'm sorry, but did Jeannot start off in the ECHL last season, and then come up to Milwaukee, and then
come right. I can look it up real quick.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like we had a meteoric rise.
Yeah, it's really
season.
Quick.
And so when you say at this point last season, maybe games wise, yes, they just started in January last season. So I'm thinking,
he was with the Everblades and then the Chicago Wolves. Yeah, he was with the Everblades and the Chicago Wolves and played 15 games for the Preds last year.
Yeah.
Prior to that, he was mostly with the Admirals between 2018. So really, I think the ECHL thing last year was probably more because of the COVID stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, because of the combination of teams with the Wolves there, I think they were running out of room. So you had a lot of guys go down to the ECHL and play.
So he's had considerable seasoning in the AHL. It's not like he was. Yeah. It's not like he walked in off the street or anything. But I mean, he's played like 100 games in the AHL. So, anyways, Tanner Jeannot is really great. It's such a great story. We've talked about him so much on the show. I mean, it's if you are into the Predators just surface level, like if you go to maybe a few games, maybe you probably don't, maybe you listen to the show every now and then, you probably haven't heard about him. But we're going to make sure that at some point you do hear about this guy because he's a big part of the team. Speaking of a big part of the team, Juuse Saros. Let's talk about him real quick.
Okay.
I actually have some stats to show, not just say, but show.
Oh.
And this has to do with how impactful he's been and how much he's, comparing him to the rest of the league. I tried to do this last week and I kind of got tied up in my numbers and everything. So I decided to just make a graphic. So let's take a look at this. I made this just before the show. This is everything that really matters in terms of who's good at being a goalie in the league. So I broke it down by even strength and by all strengths. And then I've got this other category, the Vezina stats, because that's the one that the dumb categories that Vezina trophy voters seem to care about, which is the GMs. But let's talk about even strength for a second, because even strength is a very important part of the game. It's the bulk of the game. 80% of the game is played at even strength, maybe closer to 90%. Out of 39 goalies in the NHL, and that's the reason it's that number is because that's a minimum of 600 minutes on the ice. So like some goalies have had just occasional starts here and there, but out of 39 goalies in the NHL that have played a lot of even strength minutes, Juuse Saros is fourth in save percentage, third in goals saved above average. That means that he's saved 12.8 more goals than should be expected. First in most saves. He's faced the most even strength saves of anybody in the league. He has the 7th highest high danger save percentage. Keep that one in mind because at all strength it goes up, and that's interesting. And then he's also faced the 4th most expected goals. So he's not just like, it's not just that the Predators defense has done all the work for him, right?
Right.
Second thing is at all strength, so 36 goalies at all strengths, he's faced the 5th. He has the 5th highest save percentage. He's 2nd in goals saved above average. He's still got the most saves. He's 1st in high danger save percentage. So he's got the top save percentage when those high danger chances come in. He is the best in the league at stopping them. The best in the league. And he's still got the 3rd highest expected goals against. And then the Vezina stats: wins, shutouts, and goals above goals allowed average. Wins, he's 1st in wins. Honestly, it's a luck stat because you can't score goals as a goalie. Shutouts, still a luck stat, maybe even more so. He's only got 2. The leader has 6. That continues to be the dumbest part of the Vezina predictor. And then he's 11th in goals allowed average. Again, not something that he can control all the time. So there you go. I just wanted to put that together and mention that as something that is, that shows how good he is compared to the rest of the league. What do you think?
I think you're missing a couple of key stats. Probably want to take a look at, and that's the number 1, which is where he is in our hearts. Okay. And of course, was it you that put out the stat yesterday of how many centimeters he was from the ground?
I made that one up. I don't know if he's probably dead last in that. I guessed around 60 goalies, and I thought maybe he's probably not the shortest one, but he's probably close.
Yeah, that was a good one. But if I think what's funny though is that if everybody wants to make that such a big sticking point, the fact that he's undersized or he's shorter than most goalies, I think it should also come into play when you're talking about his success. Is that if you think it's such a big deal that he's shorter, well, look at the success he's having in spite of his height. And I've never been one, like, obviously bigger body can block more of the goal, but if you're not good at sealing up the corners with your big body, or if you don't have good lateral movement, you're going to let a lot more stuff in. So the fact that he's doing all of this with the size he's been given is, I think, all the more impressive, because I'm going to say it's not a big deal, but if everyone else is going to say it is, and I want to point it out when he has success.
Yeah. I think one thing people don't think about is maybe how important it is for him to be short, because he's just so agile. But we've talked about that before, about the difference between him and Pekka Rinne. Pekka Rinne just incredibly athletic and long, and he could just flail around the net like a cat. And then Juuse Saros is just like a robot that just is always in the right spot. Watching the Arizona broadcast and also the Vegas broadcast, I watch almost all the road broadcasts, or the opponent broadcast these days, just because I think it's a really helpful way to get a new insight into the team that we cover. They were just also talking about how positionally Juuse Saros is amazing. I mean, he's every single time there is a chance on net, he is right there. He's in perfect position. He's got multiple ways to save the puck. He's got his shoulders in the right place. He's at the right height. He's got the right angle. He's got his glove ready. He's good with his stick. He's obviously incredible with his lateral movement. He's got all the different pieces, all the different weapons he has as a goalie. He uses them right. I mean, it's amazing to watch. And the opponent broadcasts also notice this, and so that's pretty cool.
It's nice. I mean, I'd like to start listening to those as well, but I've been watching, the Preds broadcast. So I think it's interesting, to hear that other side of the story, but it's also nice to hear that they're also giving credit where credit's due. I mean, I don't expect, the opposing broadcast to be like, oh, let's talk about how great everybody on the other team is, because most people don't want to hear that are watching that broadcast. But, it's pretty cool that you hear, hey, when the Predators played against this other team, their guys were talking about how awesome Saros was as a goalie too.
Yeah.
Because you have to sometimes question the reality you're being presented with is, well, everybody that I hear talking about how good Saros is also covering the team or a fan of the team or what have you. So, it's nice to hear that from other sources besides just people who are getting paid to cover the team.
I just wanted to point this out too. There is, so, you've seen a lot of people say, hang on, I'm trying to look up something as I'm talking. This is kind of tough, but I'm trying to find the quote. All right. So if you watched, or if you listened to the post game last night, once again, all the Predators players who were there, Matthias Ekholm and I guess Roman Josi were is that who it was? Yeah, I think so. We're talking about how Roman Josi is the best goalie in the world, right? Sorry. That does not happen in all NHL locker rooms. If you've paid attention at all to the Edmonton Oilers situation, where their goalie, Mikko Koskinen, has basically been in a public battle with their GM and also the players, where he's like, I can't score goals. Everyone else needs to do their job too. I'm doing my job. And then the GM, or maybe it's the coach, I can't remember. I think it's Tippett. I think it's the coach. Was basically like, our goalie needs to be better. They are having so like, even in a team with some incredible talent like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are having problems because they don't trust their goalie. And it's such an important thing to remember that not every team has a goalie like this. So,
well, and they're manifesting, right? I mean, to borrow from the young folks vernacular, right? If everybody continually repeats the line that Juuse Saros is the best goalie in the world, or we have the best goalie in the world right now, or however you want to say it, people are going to start to take notice as long as you stay on message. And with some more national outlets starting to actually somehow miraculously pay attention to one of the first place teams in one of the divisions, they're going to start hearing that. It's going to cause them to start looking for, why are these guys saying that? Because like you said, look what's going on in Edmonton. More people are going to pay attention because more people are talking about it. And if these guys are the ones that can get the party started, you and I, other people that cover the team, will have that message out there as well. It gets picked up nationally, dare I say internationally, with the Canadian media. And then you have a real conversation going on about how good is this guy? Because look at the numbers he's putting up. Look at what his players are saying about him. So
the fortunate side is he's also got the wins, and I think he's going to start so many games that he'll be pretty close in wins this year. Now, I think goalie wins is like the best predictor for who wins the Vezina. I mean, if you go back like 10 years, the leader in wins is at least a finalist every year. So like if he's close in wins, he's got a chance. All that stuff about goals saved above average, high danger save percentage, regular save percentage, all that stuff, they don't look at that, but it results in wins. So since he's probably going to start 65 games this year or something like that, probably close to 70 games. I don't know how many he's going to start, but it's going to be crazy. He'll probably have like 35, 40 wins. Like he's going to be up there. So that's really good for Saros, and like different than last year where he only had like 24 or something, 25 maybe. Maybe he didn't even have that many. I can't remember how many he had. But the reason he didn't get to be a finalist because he wasn't even top 5 in wins. So wins seems to be a really big predictor. But let's move on to talk about John Hynes, because I want to play this video of John Hynes before the Arizona game. And I thought this was just a brilliant answer. I actually turned it into an article that I wrote for A to Z Sports. You can go check that out. It's about John Hynes talking about how does his messaging to his team change with the team being in first place? Because it would be very easy to have one message to your team when you're down in the standings and saying, let's prove our worth to the league. Let's show what we can do. And then being in first place when you're the target, when everyone wants to come after you. I want to play this full thing. It's a little long, but it's only about 2 minutes. But I think it's a great response, and I think there's a lot here to what John Hynes says. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and then we'll talk about what he said after.
Answer to the question is yes, in the sense that how we want to play and the identity we want to play with. That message doesn't change. But we have had a pretty strong messaging with our group too, that we've had some success here. There's still a lot of hockey left to be played. And, it's important that we grow as a team, and that where our game is at now is not where we want to, we don't want to be the same team now, in 10 games from now, 15 games from now, 30 games from now. We want to continue to grow and get better. And that's been our mindset, whether that's building our offensive zone game, areas we can do better defensively, tactical things that we feel need to be better, or we can improve upon or build upon. So from your playing standpoint, Alex, that's a mindset that we have with our team. And that was a discussion we had with our group this morning regarding building our offensive zone game, where we can get better and not be satisfied with where we're at right now. Now, the message, I think, yes, when you're, depending on where you are in the standings at times, it's important that, we talked with the group today about, I think, when you look at character of groups and handling things, the old quote where if you give a man success or power, that's when you really see the characters. How do you respond when you're having success, and not letting off the gas or changing your mindset, but having a hunger and a mindset to continue to improve? Because although we sit in the standings where we sit now, there's a lot of hockey left to be played, and we want to make sure that we continue to grow and get better. And that's been a strong messaging to our team. And I think the final thought, in your regard, is when you are in situations now, right now we sit in first place in the Central and, have a pretty good record in the Western Conference right now, that that you're going to get the other team's best games. And, a lot of times it could be a measuring stick game, or you're not going to catch anybody by surprise. So the mental preparation and understanding, that we need to be ready at our best night in and night out, because when you're in the situation you're in now, most likely you're going to get the other team's best efforts. So it's a great question, but it is something that we're certainly on it and have been messaging to our team.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Just to kind of break it down really quick, essentially what he's saying is that the messaging for improvement doesn't really change. That after the Los Angeles game, they went back and worked on, okay, how can we increase our offensive zone time? How can we reduce our penalties? How can we fix some things defensively? But the overall message to the team does kind of change a little bit with regards to, you are going to get every single team's best game. You are no longer going to surprise anybody. I think that was the quote, something like, we're not going to surprise anybody anymore. For the first 30 games of the season, they probably surprised some teams with how they were playing. I think that's probably pretty clear. But they're not going to do that anymore, and they're going to have to face kind of a different dynamic in the last 50 games or so.
Well, the other thing that really sticks out to me from that is when he's talking about the old saying, if you give a man success is when you'll see his true character. And you think about previous, incarnations of this team where they have done things like, win the President's Trophy and finish in the top and all of this stuff. And then you see what happens in the playoffs. And I'm not saying that that's definitely they had success and you saw their true character in the playoff. But the reality is, like you said, they're getting the other team's best every time they face them. It doesn't matter who it is. They're not catching anyone by surprise. Everyone knows what this team is. They know what's coming, and they're going to be ready for it. And yeah, they're first place in the Central Division, and you've got a lot of people out there still saying that other teams should be higher up. The Predators were 11th in the Athletics power rankings. There was a Locked On podcast did a rankings where they were 17th in the power rankings, and they're not getting that respect from a lot of other places. So they definitely want to prove that they deserve to be up there. And then you've got other teams that want to prove that they don't deserve to be there. So they know what's coming with the team. They're going to give everything they can give to make sure that they show the Predators aren't the team they're trying to say they are. So, and I think it really says a lot. And I'm assuming that was a question that you asked Hines.
Yes.
Yeah. What a great answer for a coach to sit and give you that long of an explanation of things when, Hines, if he's nothing else, he's on message. You and I have seen that since day one. We haven't heard a lot of differences in the things he's saying. But to see that, I do change what I'm saying a little bit, and here's what I say, and all that's pretty impressive. I want to point out too, one of the things that we heard a lot if you look back over his tenure toward the beginning, was he talked about mental toughness and a positive mental state. And you heard that almost night after night. And you're not hearing him talk about that as much, because I think that's something the team has finally really taken to heart, really made a part of their everyday approach to hockey. And as you see them starting to absorb these lessons and absorb these concepts, they're becoming a much better team.
Yeah.
And so while it's not a lot's changed, he's still saying the same things. It's the things that he's not talking about on a daily basis anymore that tells you that the team is really starting to embrace what he's coaching them to do.
Yeah, and I think tactically, you've seen some stuff tactically from John Hynes that really works. I think that the emphasis on the defensive structure, not allowing the defensemen to activate as much, again, except for Roman Josi, he can pretty much do whatever he wants. The defense is much more structured and disciplined than it has been. The forwards are able to create on their own, which they've been doing a lot of that this year. You've seen the combinations of players he's put together. Obviously, Forsberg, Granlund, and Duchesne has been an excellent pairing. We've already talked about Jeannot and Trennan, but also like using those players in the right way, not just relying on Jeannot and Sissons and Trennan to be like this energy line when you need it, but like that's almost their top line. I mean, like they go to that line so much. They're basically their second line. I mean, they kind of have three lines really, but they use that line so much. And then they're also tactically, I think John Hynes makes a lot of really good decisions in game. I think his timing of when to send certain players out there, his timing of when a certain player is not playing up to par and kind of backing off their minutes for that game is he's got that in the bag. He knows what he's doing. And then that's a really good point you bring up about they haven't really talked about mental toughness, I think, because they've kind of figured it out. I mean, like, you don't ever ignore it, but you don't have to keep harping on it if the guys are buying into it already. So, yeah, that's a good point.
I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when you start to hear the players use a lot of the things that we've heard Hines say for a while, one of the biggest is, only trying to control what they can control, which kind of brings up something I wanted to talk about too, based on what I was able to ask Hines after the game.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Coyotes. I asked Hines, and I don't remember the exact wording, but just something along the lines of, look, you've been talking about how you only need to try to control what you can control. And I thought that last night's game was a great example of a lot of things happening that they had no control over, especially in the third period with the whole fiasco, is what I'll call it, about the high stick goal and all that nonsense. And he said, he pretty much agreed and said, yeah, this game was a really good example of why I say that, because there's going to be things that happen in every game you can't control. You have a lot of things happening all at once that you can't control. And the reality is you can get focused on those things and you can chase those things and it's not going to help you at all. Or you can choose to buckle in, strap in, and do what you need to do to bring home the win. And that's exactly what you saw the team do last night. After that whole situation, there were probably a lot of opportunities where I would say the Preds wanted to get physical, but they resisted that urge because that was a thing they could control. And they focused on shutting down the Coyotes at that point, and they made that win happen. It seems like a silly thing to say. It seems like like just something I can go to make sense. Oh, you only got to try to control what you can control. But when you start looking at how that actually plays out on the ice and how the team actually has embraced that, I think it really speaks a lot to, this is solid coaching. This is solid advice. Yeah, that kind of sucked in the third period. But if we chase that rabbit, if we try to, I'm going to go prove a point to this guy, or now we're going to have to do this, as opposed to, what we need to do is we need to shut down the other team when they've got the puck, try to take it from them and go score some goals.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they focused on doing.
Despite the late rallies by this team, the Predators continue to be really, really good with the lead. Let me look it up real quick. I know it was 17-0 at some point. Are they 18-0 now? They are now they're 17-0-1 when leading after 2. 17-0-1, 17 wins, no losses, 1 overtime loss, which I believe was the Columbus game, which is odd.
Yeah. It was that turnover.
Yeah, that's right. 17-0-1. So they're really, really good with the lead. Obviously, most teams are good with the lead. I mean, like comebacks don't happen all that often, but they do happen. So the Predators are really putting that down. So lots of really good stuff today. I really enjoyed today because we definitely covered big parts of what's going on with this team. And if you only see the final scores, you're really missing on what this team's all about. I mean, like this team is extremely physical. They're extremely skilled. They have the best goalie in the game, in my opinion. They have an incredible defenseman in Roman Josi. They've got some great young players. The top players from previous, the top paid players are playing like it. We didn't mention Phillip Forsberg on COVID protocol. To be honest, when I heard that, I was like, they'll be okay without him. I think they can make it. Assuming he's okay. I'm sure COVID protocol means that the guy tested positive. So he tested positive. Who knows what that means? Hopefully he's asymptomatic and he'll be back soon. But I was like, I think this team could win this Arizona game for sure without Phillip Forsberg. Now, the week ahead is going to be tough because of a couple of these games. The first of which is Tuesday against Colorado. The Preds have won 4 straight. So has Colorado. They've won 4 straight as well. So Colorado, and they've got the big guns back. And Cale Makar is playing like a Norris Trophy candidate as well. So Colorado Avalanche come into Bridgestone Arena Tuesday, 7 p.m. start. Thursday against Buffalo. Buffalo comes into town. Now, Buffalo, I don't even actually know where they are in the standings. Where are they at? Buffalo, let's check it. Probably at the bottom, guessing. Buffalo's not at the bottom, but they're 6th in the Atlantic. So
okay,
yeah, they're probably probably something similar to what we saw with Arizona. Maybe not as bad, but and then Saturday at Boston. That's going to be a tough game too. Going to Boston, matinee game, 12 p.m. start, noon start there. That'll be a tough game as well. So, I mean, I'm looking at this, and I think it's very similar to last week. I think if you get 2 out of these 3, you're doing fine.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. And, you mentioned Forsberg being out, and they're probably looking at facing Colorado without him. I think I'm going to look back at something really quick that Matthias Ekholm said after the game, which is garnered a lot of really positive responses. And I think he was talking about at first if someone, has a penalty and they have to go on the kill, what he said. But what he said ends up giving a lot of insight to where the team is. I'm going to read it really quick. I tweeted it last night, but he said, whatever situation we get in, it doesn't matter what it is. We just kill it for each other. We stand up for each other, and that builds team toughness. Whatever happens out there, we know we have each other's backs. So you're looking at a team that's united. So you take Phillip Forsberg out of the equation, someone's going to step up and fill that role, and they're going to make sure that they take care of each other out there.
And that's a great point. It was a great quote, and I'm glad you brought that up. And look, this team is united. They're united no matter where they go, no matter where they play and what arena they go in, whether it's the Hines tagless boxer briefs field house, or maybe if they have to go into the unfriendly confines of the Chili's Crispy Chicken Crispers Arena.
Oh, man.
Or the aptly named Fellows Power Shred Crosscut Shredder 2006 Garden.
Well, are these real?
Or the Fancy Feast Savory Center, which I think is a perfect name because, the Savory Center Fancy Feast is a brand, but it's also the name of the arena. And then, of course, SunTrust, now Truist, but probably still SunTrust Park. No matter where they're going, they are a united front. No, these are not real. But
the Bloomin' Onion Fieldhouse.
Bloomin' Onion Fieldhouse. Great. I like grapenuts.com field. I think grapenuts.com field is great. Because I don't think
grapenuts.com feels good. I like that.
I don't think there's a grapenuts.com, but I do like grape nuts.
We're about to find out.
Let's
see here.
Could be a risky URL for I don't know. Hopefully not.
There is a grapenuts.com where you can meet the Grape Nuts family. Did you know, Alex, that Grape Nuts cereal is officially back shipping at full capacity?
Say what now?
Did you know that Grape Nuts cereal is officially back shipping at full capacity to stores nationwide?
Oh, I didn't know that there was an issue. I guess they had some supply chain issues.
I learned it at grapenuts.com.
There you go.
Is that a hold on?
But I think you're right. Earlier, nothing beats the Snickers peanut butter dome. That place.
No. Well, I mean, it's competitive, but it's also delicious. Name something you don't. Again, there's Snickers, there's peanut butter, and there's a dome. And domes, I mean, at least as a child of the '80s, I know are like the pinnacle of sports facilities. So, I'm a big fan of grapenuts.com as well, and that's mainly because growing up, one of my best friend's dads was a brand rep for Post. So they had a lot of Grape Nuts regalia at their house. I don't really know why, but it was just a historic part of the company, and I guess it was lying around the office. And he's like, "We'll put this up in the laundry room." Regalia. Yeah, they were like a lot of historical Grape Nuts merch. I don't know.
Like I said, I like Grape Nuts. It's awesome. I think it's one of my favorite cereals. I eat it quite frequently. It also helps with your system, so to speak.
Well, this is taking a turn. I was going to say you must have very healthy teeth as well.
Yeah, it helps.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, you can check out all of our hockey coverage at A2CSportsNashville.com. Please also go to On the Forecheck as well. Follow me on Twitter at AlexDarty1. Follow Shaun on Twitter at SCSOTF, and we will see you next week.